I'm Ruby, 36 years old, and I thought I had it all. 12 years married to Derek, a successful real estate developer, who I once believed was my soulmate. Then I discovered his affair with Veronica, his 25-year-old assistant with perfect hair and daddy issues. The country house that I designed myself, every tile and fixture selected with love, became their secret rendezvous spot. When I found out they planned a romantic weekend there, I decided the plumbing system needed some special modifications. Before I tell you exactly what happened when that home-wrecking mistress turned on my custom Italian shower drop, a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and subscribe if you've ever wanted to teach someone a lesson they'd never forget. People always told me I had the perfect life. From the outside looking in, I suppose it seemed that way. I built my interior design business from scratch after graduating with honours from Parsons. By 30, my client list included tech moguls, old money, families and celebrities who valued discretion as much as they did my talent for creating spaces that felt both luxurious and livable. My portfolio of Manhattan penthouses and Hamptons estates had been featured in Architectural Digest twice, and my wait list stretched 6 months long. Then I met Derek at the Metropolitan Museum of Art charity gala. He stood out immediately, tall with salt and pepper hair, despite being only 32, at the time impeccably dressed in a custom tuxedo that fit his athletic frame perfectly. Unlike the other men who approached me that night with rehearsed lines and transparent agendas, Derek simply handed me a glass of champagne and asked about my thoughts on the museum's recent renovation. Our conversation flowed effortlessly from architecture to travel to our shared love of mid-century modern design. By midnight, we'd exchanged numbers. By our third date, I knew he was different from anyone I'd dated before. Derek built his real estate development company from nothing after his father's construction business went bankrupt. He understood ambition and respected mine, never expecting me to diminish my career for a relationship. "We're a power couple," he used to say, building empires side by side. Our wedding came just 10 months after we met, a tasteful ceremony at the New York Botanical Garden with 200 guests and coverage in the society pages. We moved into a spacious loft in Tribeca that I transformed into our dream space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson and enough room for both my design studio and Derek's home office. For 10 years, we were that couple that others envied. We hosted dinner parties where the city's elite angled for invitations. We travelled extensively, anniversaries in Paris, Christmas in Aspen summers, exploring coastal villages in Italy and Greece. We supported each other's professional milestones, Derek cutting ribbons at new development projects, me accepting design awards, with him beaming proudly in the audience. The country house came into our lives during year 8 of our marriage. Derek acquired a distressed property 2 hours north of the city in the Hudson Valley, a Victorian farmhouse on 15 acres, with a pond and centuries-old maple trees. The previous owners had started renovations, but ran out of money halfway through, leaving the bones good, but the execution unfinished. "It's perfect for you," Derek told me, blindfolding me before the big reveal. "Your own canvas to transform." And transform it I did. For 18 months, I poured my heart into that house, driving up every weekend to oversee the renovations. I preserved the original wide plank pine floors, but added radiant heating beneath them. I designed a kitchen that balanced farmhouse charm with chef-grade appliances. The master bathroom became my crowning achievement. A freestanding copper tub positioned to view the sunset over the hills, and a custom Italian shower with multiple heads and steam features that had been written up in a home design magazine. Every fixture, every paint colour, every piece of furniture told our story. The dining table was crafted from a 200-year-old oak that had fallen on the property. The stones in the fireplace came from a local quarry. Even the guest rooms were themed around our favourite travel destinations. "This is our forever place," I told Derek when we spent our first weekend there after completion, "where we'll grow old together, where our kids will play someday." The children conversation had become a sensitive topic by then. I'd been ready for years, but Derek always had reasons to wait. A new development launching market uncertainty, wanting to enjoy our freedom a little longer. As I entered my mid-30s, his stalling became more concerning, but I trusted that he'd come around. Looking back, I should have recognized the first signs of trouble when they appeared. Derek's emergencies at work that required late nights downtown, the weekend conferences that suddenly couldn't be missed, the subtle shift in how he looked at me, less with adoration and more with critical assessment. "You might want to try that new workout your friend mentioned," he suggested once over breakfast, his eyes flicking to my midsection, "just to stay ahead of things." I'd always been fit, a dedicated yoga practitioner and careful about my nutrition. His comment stung, but I brushed it off as thoughtless rather than cruel. Then came Veronica. Derek hired her as his executive assistant 8 months before my world imploded. I met her at the company holiday party, a willowy brunette with big doe eyes and a communications degree from NYU. She seemed sweet, even a bit shy, thanking me profusely for the job opportunity when we were introduced. "Your husband is such an amazing mentor," she gushed, clutching her champagne flute with both hands. "I'm learning so much from him." I liked her initially, even suggesting Derek bring her along to client meetings to help her professional development. Now I recognize my own naivety, how I literally invited the wolf into our fold. The mentions of Veronica became more frequent in Derek's conversations, how efficiently she reorganized the filing system, how quickly she learned the development approval process, how she stayed late to help him prepare for an important presentation. "You should hire an assistant for your business," he suggested one night over dinner. "Someone young and hungry like Veronica. It would free you up to focus on the creative work." I dismissed the suggestion, preferring to maintain personal relationships with my clients rather than delegate that trust. Now I wonder if he was trying to create equivalency, an attractive young assistant for each of us making his own arrangement seem more normal. There were other warning signs that I willfully ignored. The text notifications that made him smile in a way my messages never did. The sudden interest in his appearance, new tailored shirts, an expensive watch I didn't recognize, sessions with a personal trainer 3 times a week. The way he turned his phone face down whenever I entered the room. I trusted him completely. That was my first mistake. The change in our relationship wasn't dramatic. No single moment I could point to and say, that's when everything fell apart. Instead, it was a slow erosion like water gradually wearing away stone until suddenly the foundation crumbles. Derek became increasingly distant, both emotionally and physically. Our once passionate physical relationship dwindled to perfunctory encounters every few weeks, always initiated by me and met with excuses about stress or fatigue. When we did connect, he seemed mentally elsewhere, going through motions rather than being present. "Is everything okay between us?" I asked one night after another rejected advance. "Just tired, Ruby," he replied, not looking up from his phone. "Not everything is about you." The casual cruelty of his response should have been a red flag, but instead I internalized it. Maybe I was being too demanding. Maybe his work stress was worse than I understood. Maybe I needed to try harder to reconnect. So I did. I booked surprise dinner reservations at his favorite restaurants. I bought new lingerie. I suggested weekend getaways to reconnect. Each effort was met with lukewarm appreciation, at best outright irritation at worst. "I don't need you spending money on expensive dinners," he snapped when I surprised him with reservations at a newly opened restaurant he'd mentioned wanting to try. "I'm trying to close the riverfront development deal and don't have time for 3-hour meals." Our credit card statements revealed other concerns. Charges from upscale jewelry stores for items I never received. A weekend at a boutique hotel in the city, when Derek had supposedly been at a conference in Chicago, expensive dinners for two on nights he'd texted. He was working late with the team. When I casually mentioned these discrepancies, Derek became defensive immediately. "Are you checking up on me?" he demanded, colour rising in his cheeks. "I was entertaining clients. The jewellery was a gift for my mother's birthday that I haven't given her yet. The hotel charge must be a mistake. I'll have Veronica look into it." Veronica again. Always Veronica. Derek's criticism of me increased proportionally to his emotional withdrawal. My cooking was suddenly too elaborate or too basic. My award-winning design choices became showing off or impractical. My friendships were distractions from our relationship. "You care more about impressing your socialite clients than spending time with your husband," he accused one evening when I mentioned an important installation I needed to oversee. "That's not fair," I protested. "My business is important to me, just like yours is to you." "It's different," he insisted. "My work builds actual value. You just make things pretty for people who have too much money." Coming from the man who once proudly introduced me as the design genius who transforms houses into works of art, the dismissal of my career cut deeply. I suggested couples therapy, hoping a professional could help us navigate whatever was happening. "We don't need some stranger telling us how to fix our marriage," Derek scoffed. "This is just a rough patch. You're being paranoid and insecure." The gaslighting was so effective that I began to question my own perceptions. Was I imagining the distance? Was I being unreasonable? Was this just what happened after 12 years of marriage? Then came the business trip that changed everything. Derek was scheduled to be in Boston for 3 days, pitching to potential investors for his latest development. I'd offered to join him, thinking we could extend the trip into a weekend getaway, but he insisted it would be all business, no time for pleasure. On the second night, I received a text from him saying the meetings were going extremely well and he'd call me tomorrow. Wanting to share his apparent good mood, I called anyway, thinking I'd congratulate him on his success. The call went straight to voicemail. Not unusual during meetings, so I thought nothing of it. Later that evening, I checked our shared location app, a safety measure we'd implemented years ago after I had a car breakdown in a remote area, and noticed something odd. Derek's location wasn't showing in Boston. It was pinging from our country house. Perhaps a glitch, I reasoned. Technology isn't perfect, but a gnawing feeling in my stomach wouldn't subside. I called the house phone. No answer. I texted Derek asking how Boston was treating him and received a reply about excellent sushi and too many meetings. My intuition screamed that something was wrong. The next morning, Derek texted that his meetings had concluded early and he'd be home that evening. No mention of being at the country house. No explanation for the location discrepancy. When he arrived home, he brought me a gift. Boston cream pie from a famous local bakery, and launched into detailed stories about the investor meetings. I listened silently, wondering if I was married to a pathological liar, or if there was a reasonable explanation for the conflicting information. While Derek showered, I did something I'd never done before and had always considered a violation of trust. I checked his phone. The password was still our anniversary date. Inside, I found hundreds of text messages between him and Veronica. Some were innocuous work discussions, but most were not. Photos I can't unsee, plans for rendezvous, complaints about me, declarations of feelings that Derek had once reserved for his wife. One exchange from the previous night stood out with sickening clarity. "Veronica, miss you already. The house is even more amazing than you described. Can't wait for our whole weekend there. Derek, already counting the days. Ruby will never know. She never checks on the place when I say I'm working there alone." When Derek emerged from the shower, I was sitting on our bed, his phone in my hand, tears streaming down my face. "How long?" I asked simply. He tried denial first. "What are you talking about? Why are you going through my private messages? How long?" I repeated, my voice steadier than I felt. The denial crumbled quickly when I started reading messages aloud. Derek transitioned seamlessly to blame. What did you expect? He countered, grabbing the phone from my hands. You're always working, always obsessed with your clients and your designs. Veronica makes me feel appreciated. I've supported your career every step of the way, I said, disbelief coloring my voice. I've celebrated your successes, comforted you through setbacks. When have I ever made you feel unappreciated? It's different with her, Derek said, the cruelty of his honesty stunning me. She understands me in ways you never have. She doesn't have expectations or demands. Because she's your employee who you've known for less than a year, I responded, anger finally breaking through the shock. I'm your wife of 12 years. The argument continued in circles until I couldn't bear it anymore. I packed an overnight bag and went to my sister Amanda's apartment, collapsing into her arms when she opened the door. For 2 weeks, I stayed with Amanda, fielding Derek's alternating messages of half-hearted apology and blame. He wanted to work things out, but also insisted I needed to take responsibility for my part in his unhappiness. My best friend Sophia was less diplomatic about the situation. He's a classic narcissist, she declared over emergency margaritas at her place. He cheats, then somehow makes it your fault. Don't fall for it, Ruby. But 12 years of marriage is hard to walk away from, even when betrayal shatters your trust. After endless soul-searching and against both Amanda's and Sophia's advice, I agreed to try reconciliation. One chance, I told Derek when I moved back into our city apartment. Complete transparency, couples therapy, and Veronica needs to be gone. Derek agreed to everything, seeming genuinely contrite. He fired Veronica, though I later discovered he'd arranged a generous severance and a job with a developer friend. He attended 3 therapy sessions before finding excuses to miss the 4th. He gave me his phone password and showed me his calendar. During this reconciliation period, I did something I'm not proud of, but don't regret. I installed tracking software on Derek's phone. If he was truly committed to transparency, I reasoned this was just an insurance policy I'd never need to use. It took exactly 17 days for Derek to resume contact with Veronica, 23 days for them to meet in person, 31 days for him to create a second email account I wasn't supposed to know about. You're stronger than you think, Sophia told me over coffee after I shared my discoveries. You built an empire from nothing. You don't need a man who doesn't deserve you. She was right, of course. The question wasn't whether to end my marriage anymore. It was how to reclaim my dignity in the process. Discovering your spouse is cheating destroys something fundamental in your understanding of reality. The person you trusted most has been living a double life, making you question every memory, every moment of connection you thought you shared. For 2 months, I moved through my days in a fog, going through the motions professionally, while my personal life imploded. Derek had become masterful at deception. To the outside world, we were still the perfect couple. He held my hand at social events, complimented my appearance in front of friends, and spoke about our future plans as if they still existed. Behind closed doors, he maintained the pretense of working on our marriage while his affair with Veronica continued unabated. The tracking app on his phone became both my torment and my evidence collection tool. I watched their meeting locations in real time: her apartment in Brooklyn, hotel rooms downtown, restaurants far from our social circle's usual haunts. The pain was excruciating, but I needed irrefutable proof before deciding my next steps. Then came the email that crystallized everything. Forwarded to Derek's secret account, which I now monitored regularly, was a booking confirmation for our country house for the upcoming weekend. The original email had come from Veronica with a subject line that simply read, "Our special getaway." In the body of the email was a detailed itinerary of their planned weekend, including champagne by the fireplace I had painstakingly restored with reclaimed brick dinner, using the custom copper cookware I had imported from France, and plans to finally try out that amazing shower everyone talks about. That evening, Derek informed me he needed to spend the weekend at the country house alone to think about our future. The calculated lie delivered with perfect sincerity made something inside me snap, not in the way that leads to screaming or violence, but in the quiet, cold way that transforms a wounded heart into a strategic mind. I think that's a good idea, I replied calmly. I've been planning to visit my mother anyway. She hasn't been feeling well. My mother was actually on a cruise in the Mediterranean, but Derek rarely spoke to my family and wouldn't bother to verify my story. The next morning, I called Marcus, a private investigator recommended by a client who had gone through a high-profile divorce. We met at a cafe far from my usual haunts. I need legally admissible evidence of an affair, I explained, sliding an envelope with a retainer across the table, and I need surveillance of my country property this coming weekend. Marcus was professional and thorough, explaining what would constitute legal evidence in New York State and what methods he could use to obtain it. I can document their arrival together and activities in public areas of the property, he confirmed. That should be sufficient for your divorce attorney, especially combined with the electronic evidence you've already gathered. Divorce. The word still felt surreal, but I was beginning to accept its inevitability. New York's equitable distribution laws meant I'd likely keep my business and personal assets, but the country house complicated things. Though I had designed every inch and managed the renovation, the property was in both our names. I couldn't bear the thought of losing it to Derek and Veronica after they had already taken so much. That afternoon, I met with Ryan, a contractor friend, who had helped with the country house renovation. I trusted him implicitly and knew he understood plumbing systems better than anyone. I need to make some temporary modifications to the water system, I explained, showing him the diagrams I had sketched. Nothing permanent, nothing that would cause actual harm or damage the property, just memorable. Ryan studied my plans with professional interest, occasionally raising an eyebrow or suppressing a smile. The dye needs to be temporary and skin-safe, I specified. The hair removal solution extremely diluted, just enough to cause mild shedding, not baldness. The foam creator for the toilet should be impressive but not damaging to the septic system. Oh, this is completely doable, Ryan confirmed, making additional notes on my diagrams. I can set it all up with timed release mechanisms and remote controls. You could activate each element from your phone if you wanted to orchestrate the timing precisely. We spent hours refining the plan, ensuring each surprise would be uncomfortable and embarrassing, but not dangerous. The shower would dispense a highly diluted hair removal cream mixed with the shampoo reservoir, just enough to cause noticeable but not complete hair loss. The bath water would slowly release a temporary blue dye that wouldn't be visible until exposed to full light. The ice maker would produce cubes made from fish stock that would become increasingly pungent as they melted. The sink water would contain a bitter but harmless additive that would make anything prepared with it taste awful. And the pièce de résistance, the toilet system that would create a massive foam overflow when flushed. We should add cameras, Ryan suggested. For home security purposes, of course. I nodded, specifying that cameras would only be placed in common areas and exteriors, nothing in bedrooms or bathrooms. I wanted evidence, not voyeurism, and needed to stay on the right side of privacy laws. The plan came together with surprising efficiency. Ryan assembled a small team of trusted professionals who believed they were installing a smart home monitoring system. Within 3 days, the modifications were complete and undetectable. Everything can be reversed, with no permanent effects to the systems, Ryan assured me as we tested the remote activation features, and none of the additives are harmful, just extremely inconvenient and embarrassing. I rented a cabin just a mile from our country house, close enough to monitor the situation, but far enough to maintain plausible deniability. Marcus set up additional surveillance equipment and instructed me on documentation procedures. The night before the weekend, I sat alone in my city apartment, questioning whether I was really going through with this plan. Was I becoming someone I didn't recognize? Would I regret stooping to revenge instead of simply filing for divorce? I called Sophia, the only person besides Ryan and Marcus who knew what I was planning. Am I making a mistake? I asked her. Should I just confront them directly? Ruby, she said gently. You tried the high road. You gave him chances to come clean. He's planning to take his mistress to the house you poured your heart into while lying to your face about it. This isn't just about revenge. It's about consequences for actions. Some people only learn when they experience the pain they've been inflicting on others. Her words solidified my resolve. This wasn't just petty vengeance. It was justice served with a side of poetic symmetry. Derek and Veronica had turned my life into a humiliating spectacle without my knowledge. Now they would experience their own private humiliation with me as the only witness. The next morning, I kissed Derek goodbye as he packed his work materials for his solitary weekend of reflection. I watched him drive away, then called an Uber to take me to the rental car I'd arranged under Sophia's name. Remember, Marcus texted as I drove north toward the country house. Document everything. Stay emotionally detached if possible. This is evidence gathering, not entertainment. But as I set up my monitoring equipment in the rental cabin, watching the exterior cameras show our empty country house awaiting its weekend guests, I couldn't help but feel a flutter of anticipation. Derek had taken my trust, my love, and my dignity. I was about to take something much less valuable, but perhaps more immediately precious to him: his pride. I arrived at the rental cabin by early afternoon on Friday, giving myself plenty of time to set up before Derek and Veronica were scheduled to arrive. The cabin was rustic but comfortable, with a clear line of sight to the country house through the trees. Marcus had already installed a secure connection to access the surveillance system, and Ryan had provided a tablet specifically programmed to control the plumbing modifications. At precisely 4:30, Derek's Range Rover pulled into the long driveway of our country house. I felt a strange calm watching him through the cameras, noting how he checked his appearance in the rearview mirror before getting out. This man who had once been the centre of my world now seemed like a stranger, handsome still, but hollow somehow, his confident movements reading as performative rather than genuine. He entered the house using his key, then immediately began what I can only describe as a staging process. He turned on lights, adjusted throw pillows, and placed what appeared to be rose petals leading to the master bedroom. The intimacy of watching him prepare the home I had created for another woman was surreal, like watching an actor use my life as a movie set. At 5:45, a taxi arrived, delivering Veronica. She emerged carrying an overnight bag and what appeared to be an expensive bottle of champagne. Even from a distance, I could see why a man with fragile self-esteem might be drawn to her. She was conventionally beautiful in that specifically youthful way that women my age are constantly told we should emulate but never quite achieve. Derek greeted her with an embrace that quickly turned passionate. I forced myself to observe dispassionately, reminding myself this was evidence gathering, not self-torture. They entered the house together, Derek carrying her bag as if she were a guest at a luxury hotel rather than a homewrecker in a married couple's home. The exterior cameras captured their initial tour, Derek proudly showing off spaces I had meticulously designed as if they were his own creations. I could see Veronica's impressed reactions through the windows as they moved from room to room. When they reached the master bathroom, Derek gestured expansively toward my custom Italian shower, clearly boasting about its features. "Just wait until you experience this," I could imagine him saying, not knowing how prophetic those words would be. Their evening began with champagne on the patio. I watched as Derek used the outdoor ice maker to fill their glasses, the first point of contact with my modified systems. The ice cubes looked perfectly normal, but were made with diluted fish stock that would become increasingly pungent as they melted. Through the audio feeds, I caught fragments of their conversation, finally alone without looking over our shoulders. Can't believe how beautiful this place is. When will you tell her it's over? Needs time to accept it's not working. Their casual discussion of my marriage's demise while enjoying my home made the last threads of doubt about my plan dissolve. They deserved what was coming. Initially, they didn't seem to notice anything wrong with their drinks, but as the ice melted, Veronica's expression changed. She sniffed her glass suspiciously, then took a tentative sip and grimaced. "This champagne tastes odd," her voice came through clearly on the audio. "Kind of fishy." Derek tasted his own drink and frowned. "Must be old ice in the maker. I haven't been up here in a while. Let me dump these and we can drink it without ice." Crisis temporarily averted. They moved inside where Derek prepared dinner in my kitchen. I had purposely left this water source unmodified, wanting them comfortable and unsuspecting for the main events to come. They ate at the dining table I had commissioned from a local artisan, drinking more champagne and feeding each other in a display that would have been nauseating even if it hadn't been my husband with his mistress. After dinner, Veronica suggested they take advantage of the amazing bathtub she'd heard so much about. "I brought bath bombs and special oils," she said, her voice playful. "Let's break in that copper tub properly." My pulse quickened as they headed upstairs to the master bathroom. The bathroom was my design masterpiece, a sanctuary with heated marble floors, a copper soaking tub positioned perfectly to watch sunsets through floor-to-ceiling windows, and the multi-head shower system that had been featured in design magazines. Derek turned on the bath, adding hot water to the deep copper tub, while Veronica opened a bottle of bath oil, pouring it generously. The room filled with steam as they undressed each other, the dim lighting I had specifically designed for relaxation now serving another purpose, temporarily concealing the blue dye tablets Ryan had installed in the waterline. They slipped into the tub together, the camera in the hallway capturing their entrance, but respecting legal boundaries once inside. The audio, however, continued recording their conversation, mundane at first, then increasingly intimate. I forced myself to focus on the technical aspects of what was happening rather than the emotional impact. Approximately 20 minutes later, Derek reached over to turn on the brighter vanity lights, presumably to pour more champagne without spilling. That's when I heard Veronica's first shriek. "What the hell, Derek, look at me, I'm blue!" Derek's confused expletives followed as they both apparently realized their skin had taken on a distinct azure tint from the dissolved dye. "What the fuck is in this water?" Derek's voice was panicked. Get out now!" The hallway camera captured their frantic exit from the tub, both dripping blue water onto my carefully selected marble tiles, their skin noticeably tinted even in the corridor lighting. My skin," Veronica wailed, examining her blue-tinged body in the vanity mirror. "What kind of tub is this? Is it copper poisoning or something?" "That's impossible," Derek insisted, though his voice betrayed his own alarm. "Ruby would have mentioned if there was something wrong with the tub. She uses it all the time." The mention of my name in this context sent an unexpected jolt through me. Even now, in his panic, he was thinking of me as the caretaker, the one who would have warned him of dangers. The irony wasn't lost on me. "We need to rinse this off," Veronica insisted, moving toward the shower. "Turn it on hot, maybe it will wash away whatever this is." I sat forward in my chair, watching the monitor intently. Here it was. The main event. I activated the shower mechanism remotely, ensuring the diluted hair removal cream would mix perfectly with the water once the temperature reached the right level. The hallway camera showed Derek adjusting the shower controls, while Veronica waited impatiently, a towel clutched around her blue-tinted body. Steam began to fill the bathroom as they both stepped into the large walk-in shower enclosure. For several minutes, nothing seemed amiss. The shower functioned normally, and I could hear their voices relaxing slightly as they convinced each other the blue tint was already fading. It wasn't. The dye was designed to last at least 24 hours on skin. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Through the audio, I heard Veronica say, "This shampoo is amazing. It's so rich and lathery." She was using the dispenser Ryan had modified to mix the diluted depilatory cream with expensive salon shampoo. The formula needed approximately 5 minutes of contact to take effect, just long enough for them to finish their shower before noticing. Derek apparently joined in, commenting on how the shampoo tingles a bit, but feels really clarifying. They had no idea they were distributing the hair removal solution all over their heads and bodies. When they finally turned off the water about 10 minutes later, the hallway camera captured them emerging from the steam-filled bathroom towels, wrapped around themselves, still puzzling over their bluish skin, but seeming less panicked. That calm lasted approximately 3 minutes. Veronica's scream pierced through the audio so loudly I had to lower the volume. "My hair! Oh my God, my hair!" The camera caught her running into the hallway, clutching a handful of loose hair, her expression one of absolute horror. "It's falling out, Derek. My hair is falling out in clumps." Derek's reaction came seconds later as he apparently made the same discovery about his own hair. He appeared in the hallway, frantically rubbing his head with a towel, only to find more hair coming away with each wipe. "What the fuck is happening?" he shouted, examining the hair-covered towel in disbelief. "Is this some kind of toxic mold, chemical reaction?" Their panic escalated as they realized it wasn't just their head hair being affected. Veronica wailed about her eyebrows thinning while Derek discovered patches of his chest hair disappearing. "We need to rinse again," Veronica insisted, heading back toward the bathroom. "No," Derek grabbed her arm. "No more water from this house. Something's contaminated. We need to get out of here." They hurried to the bedroom, pulling on clothes over their still damp, blue-tinted bodies, continuing to discover more hair loss as they dressed. Veronica was openly sobbing now, her carefully constructed beauty visibly diminishing with each passing minute. "My hair took 2 years to grow this length, and my eyebrows are microbladed. They cost $800. What is happening?" Derek was no calmer, repeatedly running his hands over his now patchy scalp, his signature salt and pepper hair coming away in tufts. "This has to be some kind of chemical contamination," he insisted. "Maybe a pipe leaked something into the water system." They gathered their belongings in frantic haste, Veronica stuffing things randomly into her overnight bag. When Derek went to use the bathroom one final time before their escape, my last surprise activated. The toilet, when flushed, released a chemical reaction, creating a rapidly expanding mountain of foam that quickly overflowed onto the floor. Derek's shocked expletives echoed through the house as he backed out of the bathroom, foam spilling into the hallway behind him. "We're leaving now," he shouted to Veronica. "This whole house is malfunctioning." They ran downstairs, both still discovering new patches of missing hair, their skin still noticeably blue, even under their hastily donned clothes. Derek tried using the kitchen sink to rinse his hands after touching the foam, only to discover the bitter-tasting additive in that water supply as well. "Don't touch any water in this house," he warned Veronica. "Don't drink anything. Don't touch anything else." They fled to Derek's Range Rover, throwing their bags in the back and practically diving into the seats. Derek turned the key in the ignition. Nothing happened. He tried again. The engine made a struggling sound but wouldn't turn over. This wasn't part of my planned revenge, but later Ryan would confess to adding one final touch: sugar in the gas tank, an old-school method of disabling a vehicle without permanently damaging it. Through the exterior cameras, I watched Derek's increasing frustration as he repeatedly failed to start the car. Veronica was in full meltdown mode now, alternating between sobbing about her hair and demanding they call for help. "Who am I supposed to call?" Derek snapped at her. "A plumber, a chemist, the CDC. I don't care. Call a taxi, call Uber, call anyone. I need to get to a hospital to make sure we haven't been poisoned." Derek finally gave up on the car and called for roadside assistance, explaining their vehicle wouldn't start and they needed immediate help. The audio captured his struggle to sound calm and normal while clearly in a state of panic. They waited in the driveway, both examining their reflections in the car windows with horror as more hair continued to shed and the blue tint refused to fade. When the tow truck finally arrived 40 minutes later, the driver's reaction was priceless. His professional demeanor cracked momentarily as he took in the blue-skinned, partially bald couple standing beside the disabled Range Rover. "Car trouble, folks?" he asked, clearly struggling to maintain eye contact rather than stare at their bizarre appearance. "Yes, it won't start," Derek replied tersely. "And we need to get to town immediately. There's something wrong with the water in the house." The driver glanced from them to the house and back, clearly connecting their appearance to whatever water problem existed. "I can tow your vehicle to the nearest garage, but they're closed until morning," he explained. "I can give you a ride to town, though. There's a motel near the service station." "A motel? Are you serious?" Veronica's composure finally shattered completely. "Look at us. We need a hospital, not a motel." The driver maintained admirable professionalism, despite the bizarre situation. "Hospital's about 30 minutes away. I can take you there after I hook up the car." As he began attaching Derek's expensive Range Rover to the tow truck, I heard Veronica hissing at Derek. "This is your fault. Your weird house with its toxic water. I look like a fucking smurf who's going through chemotherapy." "How is this my fault?" Derek shot back. "I've used that shower dozens of times without turning blue or going bald." "Well, something obviously changed. Did your wife know we were coming here? Did she do something to the water?" The accusation hung in the air for a moment before Derek dismissed it. "Don't be ridiculous. Ruby doesn't even know we're here. She thinks I'm alone, working on projects." "Are you sure about that?" Veronica pressed. "Because this feels personal, Derek, like someone wanted to humiliate us specifically." Derek had no answer for that, and they fell into tense silence as the tow truck driver finished securing the Range Rover. As they climbed into the tow truck's cabin, Veronica delivered her parting shot. "I'm done, Derek. Whatever this is, I'm not part of it anymore. Don't call me, don't text me, don't email me. I can find another rich guy who doesn't come with a psycho wife and a toxic house." I watched them drive away, the Range Rover trailing behind the tow truck, and felt a complex mix of emotions. Satisfaction, yes, but also sadness for what had been lost and anger that it had come to this. But most surprisingly, I felt relief. The weight of pretending not to know, of questioning my own worth, had lifted. Derek and Veronica had planned a romantic weekend in my special place, the home I had created, with love and care. Instead, they'd experienced a cascade of increasingly humiliating disasters that had ended their affair in spectacular fashion. It wasn't mature, it wasn't dignified, but it was undeniably justice of a sort. I spent the night in the rental cabin, monitoring the exterior cameras to ensure Derek didn't return unexpectedly. In the morning, I'd drive to the country house and prepare for the next phase of my plan, the confrontation. But for now, I allowed myself a glass of wine and a moment to acknowledge that sometimes revenge really is a dish best served with contaminated plumbing. The morning sun filtered through the pine trees surrounding the rental cabin as I packed my overnight bag. I'd slept surprisingly well, considering the emotional roller coaster of the previous evening. Perhaps there's a certain peace that comes with taking action after months of feeling helpless. The surveillance system showed no activity at the country house. Derek hadn't returned overnight. According to the GPS tracking on his phone, he'd spent the night at the county hospital with Veronica, then checked into a hotel near the train station. His last text message to her had gone unanswered. I drove the short distance to our country house, using my key to enter what still felt completely like my domain, despite Derek's brief invasion. The evidence of their hasty departure was everywhere. Wet towels on the bathroom floor, champagne glasses on the patio, rose petals now wilted on the bedroom floor. The bathroom looked like a scene from a bizarre science fiction movie. Blue-tinged water had splashed everywhere, and clumps of hair clung to the shower drain. The toilet had stopped producing foam, but a crusty residue remained around the bowl. I documented everything with my phone camera before contacting Ryan. Operation Plumbing Revenge was a success, I told him when he answered. But now I need a rapid restoration team. Ryan arrived with 2 trusted assistants within the hour. They worked efficiently, reversing all the modifications to the water system, cleaning up the evidence and restoring everything to perfect working order. While they worked, I cleared away the more personal evidence of Derek's planned tryst, removing the champagne bottles, changing the bedding, and erasing all traces of their presence. The house will be back to normal in a few hours, Ryan assured me. No permanent damage to any systems, though fair warning, the blue dye might leave a faint ring in the copper tub that will need special cleaning. I thanked him and his team for their discretion and expertise, compensating them generously. By early afternoon, the house looked immaculate again, no indication of either the romantic weekend or the plumbing disaster that had followed. I texted Derek casually. "How's your solo work weekend going at the country house? Need me to bring anything up tomorrow?" His response came quickly. "Change of plans. Had to come back to the city for an emergency client meeting. I'll explain later." More lies. I checked the GPS again. He was still at the hotel near the train station, apparently deciding on his next move. I settled into the living room of the country house, positioning myself perfectly for maximum impact when he eventually returned to collect his abandoned belongings. Around 5 o'clock, I heard the sound of a car in the driveway, not Derek's Range Rover, which was presumably still at the service station, but a taxi. I adjusted my position on the sofa, calmly sipping tea as the front door opened. Derek entered cautiously, clearly not expecting anyone to be home. When he saw me, he froze mid-step, his expression cycling rapidly through surprise, confusion, and something that looked remarkably like fear. I had to suppress a gasp at his appearance. The hair removal solution had done its work thoroughly. His once thick hair was now patchy and uneven, with significant bald spots scattered across his scalp. His eyebrows were half gone, giving him a perpetually surprised expression. Most noticeably, his skin still carried a distinct blue tinge, especially visible on his face and hands. "Ruby," he managed finally, "what are you doing here? I thought you were visiting your mother." "And I thought you were here alone, working," I replied calmly. "Yet here we both are, full of surprises." Derek's eyes darted around the room, perhaps looking for signs of Veronica or evidence of their visit. Finding none, his confidence seemed to return slightly. "I had a bizarre accident here last night," he said, gesturing vaguely to his appearance. "Some kind of chemical reaction in the water system. I had to go to the hospital." "How strange," I remarked, taking another sip of tea. "The water seems perfectly fine to me. I've been here all morning using it without any issues." Confusion flickered across his face. "That's impossible. The whole system was contaminated. There was blue dye and some kind of depilatory agent, and the toilet produced expanding foam." I raised an eyebrow. "Derek, that sounds absolutely crazy. I just took a shower upstairs an hour ago. The water is completely normal." "But I'm blue," he exclaimed, extending his arms. "Look at me. My hair fell out. Veronica's hair fell out too. The mention of her name hung in the air between us." His expression showed he realized his mistake immediately. "Veronica," I asked innocently, "your assistant, why would she be affected by our water system?" Derek opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. For perhaps the first time in our marriage, he seemed completely at a loss for words. "Unless," I continued, my voice hardening slightly, "she was here with you last night, in our home, in our bed. Ruby, I can explain. No need." I cut him off. "I know everything, Derek. I know about the affair. I know about all the lies. I know about your plans for a romantic weekend here with her. I've known for months. His face paled beneath the blue tint, creating an almost purple hue that would have been comical under different circumstances. How I know isn't important, I interrupted again. What's important is what happens now. I stood and walked to the side table, picking up my phone and turning it to show him. On the screen was a series of photos. Derek and Veronica entering the house together, champagne on the patio, the two of them heading upstairs. I have everything documented, Derek. Everything. The affair, the lies, your presence here with her when you told me you were working alone. You've been spying on me. His shock quickly transformed into indignation. You installed cameras in our house without telling me. That's invasion of privacy. That's legally installed security cameras in common areas of a property I co-own. I finished for him. Perfectly legal, as my lawyer has confirmed. Your lawyer! The words seemed to hit him like physical blows. You've spoken to a lawyer? I nodded calmly. I've spoken to several, actually. A divorce attorney, a property lawyer, and a financial advisor. They all agree that your documented infidelity, combined with our prenuptial agreement's fidelity clause, puts me in a very strong position. The prenuptial agreement had been Derek's idea originally. His family had lost everything in his father's bankruptcy, and he'd been determined to protect his assets as he rebuilt. Ironically, the agreement he'd insisted upon included a clause heavily penalizing infidelity, a clause I had actually argued against during our engagement, believing we would never need it. The prenup was a mutual protection, Derek protested weakly. You can't use one mistake to take everything I've built. One mistake? I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. Derek, I have evidence of at least 7 hotel meetings, dozens of lunch dates, hundreds of text messages, and now this weekend getaway. That's not a mistake. That's a calculated campaign of deception. He sank onto the couch, his blue-tinted, partially bald head dropping into his hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. This pathetic, diminished version of the man I had once loved so completely. What do you want? He asked finally, his voice low. A divorce, I replied simply. Clean, fair, and final. And the house, he gestured around us. Your gallery, the apartment. The prenup is quite clear about asset division in case of infidelity, I reminded him. But I'm not interested in destroying you, Derek. Despite what you might think after your colourful experience last night. His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. Last night, the water, that was you. I maintained a neutral expression. I have no idea what caused your alleged water problems. As I said, everything seems perfectly normal today. Don't play innocent, he snarled, some of his usual confidence returning. You did something to the water system. You knew we were coming here and you set a trap. That's a very serious accusation, I replied calmly. Do you have any evidence of tampering, any witnesses, any proof at all beyond your blue skin and patchy hair, both of which could be explained by an allergic reaction to some product Veronica brought? Derek stared at me for a long moment, calculation visible in his eyes. He was weighing his options, considering whether he could prove anything, or if making accusations would only weaken his position further. This isn't you, Ruby, he said finally, his tone softening. These games, these tricks, this vengeful person, this isn't the woman I married. You're right, I agreed. The woman you married believed in you completely. She thought you were honest and faithful and worthy of her trust. That woman disappeared the moment she found hundreds of texts between her husband and his assistant. I stood gathering my purse and car keys. I'll be staying here at the country house for the foreseeable future. You can collect your things from the apartment next week when I'm not there. My lawyer will contact yours to begin divorce proceedings. Just like that. Derek looked genuinely shocked. 12 years of marriage and you're walking away just like that. No, Derek, I corrected him quietly. You walked away months ago every time you chose her over me. Every lie you told, every promise you broke. I'm just finally accepting the choice you already made." As I moved toward the door, he called after me, desperation edging into his voice. "We can fix this, Ruby. I'll end things with Veronica. I already have after last night. We can go to counselling, take a trip together, start fresh." I turned back one last time, studying the man I had once built my life around. Even now, blue-tinted and half-bald, he believed his charm and promises could erase months of betrayal. "There's nothing to fix, Derek. Some broken things should stay broken." I allowed myself a small smile. "Besides, I think the blue look suits you. It brings out your true colours." As I drove away from the house, I felt no triumph, no vindictive joy, just a strange, peaceful certainty that I was finally moving in the right direction. The revenge had been satisfying in the moment, yes, but the real victory wasn't watching Derek and Veronica suffer embarrassment. It was reclaiming my power, my home, and my future from the man who had taken them for granted. The plumbing incident would remain our secret, impossible to prove denied if ever mentioned, but always there between us, as a reminder that sometimes justice arrives in unexpected ways, like perhaps through a custom Italian shower with excellent water pressure and very special additives. Life, after deciding to end a 12-year marriage, doesn't reset overnight. The weeks following my confrontation with Derek brought a roller coaster of emotions and practical challenges I hadn't fully anticipated. The legal process began smoothly enough. My divorce attorney, Catherine Winters, was a powerhouse in designer suits who specialised in high-asset divorces. When I shared the evidence I'd gathered of Derek's infidelity, along with our prenuptial agreement, she was calmly confident. "The fidelity clause is quite clear," she noted, reviewing the document. "In case of proven infidelity by either party, the offending spouse forfeits claim to jointly purchased properties and pays the other party a settlement of $500,000. "Derek will fight it," I warned her. "He never imagined it would be applied against him." Catherine smiled thinly. "They never do. But with your documentation, his position is extremely weak. His best option is to settle quickly and quietly." Derek predictably didn't see it that way. His initial legal response was aggressive, including counter-accusations that I had tampered with the plumbing system at our country house, creating a dangerous situation that had resulted in physical harm and emotional distress. When Catherine requested any evidence of this alleged tampering, his lawyer withdrew the claim. The water system had been inspected and found perfectly normal, and Derek couldn't prove anything had been modified temporarily. Our social circle fractured along predictable lines once news of our separation spread. Some mutual friends maintained diplomatic neutrality, others chose sides. Derek's business associates largely stood by him, though I noticed several wives reaching out to me privately with messages of support. "I always thought something was off with him and that assistant," admitted Marianne, wife of Derek's project manager, over coffee. "The way he looked at her at the company Christmas party made me uncomfortable." Derek's sister Elise surprised me by calling a month after our separation. We'd always been close, sharing a love of art and design that her brother never quite understood. "I love my brother," she said bluntly, "but he's an idiot who deserves everything coming to him. Are you okay?" Her loyalty meant more than she could know. "I'm getting there," I told her truthfully. Veronica disappeared from Derek's life completely after the country house incident. I heard through industry gossip that she'd taken a job with a development company in Chicago, leaving no forwarding address. Derek's office hired a new executive assistant, a stern-looking grandmother of 5 who wore sensible shoes and kept pictures of her grandchildren prominently displayed on her desk. The most difficult moment came when Derek made one last attempt at reconciliation. 3 months after our separation, with divorce proceedings well underway, he appeared at the country house unannounced. His hair had mostly grown back, though thinner than before, and the blue tint had finally faded from his skin. "I miss you," he said, simply, standing on the porch I'd designed with southern yellow pine and wrought iron details. "I made a terrible mistake. Multiple mistakes. I want to come home." For the briefest moment, I felt the pull of our history, the comfort of the familiar. 12 years creates patterns that are hard to break, even when they've become toxic. "This isn't your home anymore, Derek," I replied gently. "We both need to move forward." "Is this about the prenup?" he asked, a hint of the old calculating Derek showing through. "Because I'll sign whatever you want. The house, the money, I don't care. I just want another chance." "No," I shook my head. "This is about trust that can't be rebuilt and respect that can't be restored. You didn't just sleep with someone else, Derek. You lied to my face for months. You made me doubt my own instincts, my own worth. That's not something I can forget, even if I wanted to." After he left, I sat on the porch steps and finally allowed myself to cry. Not for the marriage I was losing, but for the one I had thought I had. The one that had existed only in my imagination while reality told a different story. The divorce became final 7 months after the country house incident. The prenuptial agreement was upheld with Derek surrendering his claim to the country house and paying the stipulated settlement. He kept his business assets and our city apartment, which I no longer wanted anyway. With the settlement money and funds from selling my share of our joint investments, I decided to make a bold professional move. I closed my existing design studio and launched Ruby Lancaster Restorations, a firm specializing in creating healing spaces for women in life transitions. My first clients were divorcees like myself, looking to reclaim and redesign homes that held complicated memories. "I don't just want to redecorate," explained my client Lisa, recently divorced after 20 years. "I want to exorcise him from every corner of this house without losing the parts that are still me." "I understand completely," I told her, and I truly did. The country house underwent its own transformation. I gutted the master bathroom entirely, removing the copper tub and Italian shower that had been the scene of Derek's humiliation. The new design featured a garden-soaking tub beneath a skylight and a rainfall shower with simple, elegant fixtures. The blue-stained copper tub I donated to a sculptural artist who transformed it into an installation piece called Emotional Residue. Throughout this period, I worked with a therapist named Dr. Powell who specialized in betrayal trauma. She helped me process not just the pain of Derek's infidelity, but my own actions in response. "I'm not proud of the revenge plot," I admitted during one session. "It felt justified in the moment, but sometimes I wonder if it lowered me to his level." "Betrayal evokes primal responses," she replied thoughtfully. "What matters isn't that you had that impulse, but what you learned from it and how you move forward. Do you regret it?" I considered the question carefully. I regret that our marriage devolved to that point, but no, I don't regret showing him there are consequences for treating people as disposable. I don't regret standing up for myself, even if the method wasn't exactly mature. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Ryan, the contractor, who had helped with my revenge plan at a home improvement store. He was selecting fixtures for a renovation project, and I was sourcing materials for a client's lake house redesign. "How's life post-Blue Man?" he asked, with a smile referencing the incident we'd never discussed outside of our original planning. I laughed, surprised by how easy it felt. "Colourful in better ways. How's business?" We ended up having coffee, which led to dinner the following week. Ryan was refreshingly straightforward, a skilled craftsman who took pride in his work and treated people with consistent respect. He made no grand romantic gestures, but remembered how I took my coffee and asked thoughtful questions about my design process. On our third date, he admitted, "I've had a crush on you since you hired me for the country house renovation, but you were married, so I kept it professional." "And now?" I asked. "Now I'm asking if you'd like to see where this goes, one step at a time, no pressure." A year after the shower incident, as I had come to think of it, I hosted a housewarming party at the fully renovated country house. The guest list included my sister Amanda, my friend Sophia, who had supported me throughout the ordeal, Ryan, who was now officially my boyfriend, and even Derek's sister Elise, who had remained a loyal friend despite the divorce. As we raised glasses on the rebuilt patio, Sophia proposed a toast to Ruby, who turned a house back into a home and reminded us all that the best revenge isn't getting even, it's living well. Later that evening, as the guests departed and Ryan helped clean up, I found myself alone for a moment in the new master bathroom. The space bore no resemblance to the one where Derek and Veronica had experienced their blue, hairless humiliation. This room was entirely mine, calm, elegant, and untainted by painful memories. I caught my reflection in the mirror and really looked at myself, perhaps for the first time in years. The woman looking back wasn't just a betrayed wife or a vindictive ex. She was a complete person who had walked through fire and emerged stronger, wiser, and more authentically herself. The revenge had been satisfying in the moment, yes, but the real victory was this: standing in a home that was truly mine, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for me, pursuing work that fulfilled me, and moving forward with hard-earned wisdom about what I would and wouldn't accept in relationships. Derek had taken my trust and my years, but he hadn't taken my capacity for joy or my ability to rebuild. In the end, that was a far more meaningful triumph than any plumbing prank, no matter how poetically just it had been. Have you ever faced betrayal and found a way to reclaim your power afterward? What helped you move forward? Share your story in the comments below. If this tale of revenge and renewal spoke to you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about women who refuse to let betrayal define them. Share with a friend who might need a reminder that sometimes the best response to being treated as disposable is proving just how valuable you really are. Thank you for listening, and remember, the strongest homes are built after the storm, not before it.